Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode. Again, I'm so happy you are with me. I want to talk about something today that's been coming up a lot in my personal life. This is something where I have been talking to friends and this has been coming up. I've had even clients where this has been coming up too. So obviously, this is the perfect time to put this topic into our season lineup. This is also a topic that I have been wanting to talk about for years now, and I guess the timing just has not been right where it's fit into the season itself, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. There's timing for everything. So today, I want to talk about limitations. Because believe it or not, when we're going through this journey and as we're self-healing or as we are in this new place and an awakening that we're trying to moving on in our lives or trying to find that place where we start to thrive, it comes down to really this is one of those other huge layers that we have to recognize and acknowledge, which is our limitations. And this is really it's an interesting word because I feel like it carries so many different vibrations with it. We hear about limitations. Honestly, before when I heard this word, I would think about what would come to mind first would be, to me, it's like vines, coming around my wrists and holding me down, that the world is against me and creating these limits and nothing is possible. That these blocks have been put in my way and there's no way to get through. These are these brick walls and you just don't cross them. You don't go past them. And I used to believe that these were put there because that's just how it was, that these were rules that I had to follow. And they were there because I'm not supposed to break these down, or it was impossible. Let's put it that way. It was impossible. They were just there. And it was like the law or the rule, and it just was. What's interesting is that over these years, as I have been finding my own power and learning to heal, is that these limits, I've been seeing them in a whole different way. And I do. And that's what I want to share with you. I want to bring a whole different perspective on life and creating what you want and doing and being and speaking and just getting to that level in your life where you feel like you're at peace, where you feel that you are connected with yourself. You feel like you are creating and doing exactly what brings that joy to you, where there's no more anxiety or feeling like you're held back or feeling like you don't have power or you feel of a victim. Because I definitely used to be in that phase. And I look back now and I can't even imagine putting myself back in those positions. And while I say that too, it's just, I think recently it's come up again for me, and this is probably why it's really important that we're speaking now. Because even me personally, no matter how much healing I've done, this done in layers. Because something came up, and I realized it was a trigger, it's an own personal trauma trigger that came up. And it was a situation, and I was talking to someone. And they reminded me, and I needed that snap out of it, which is interesting because usually I'm the one who gives this advice, right? People call me when they're in these situations. I'm so grateful for this person. And because this person was also triggered in the same as me, but they brought themselves into this beautiful place of self-power and reminded me, no one has control over us or over this. And it's like, woof, it was clicked. And I was just like, again, it was just like this poof of this trauma. And I feel that it was this big wall breaking down again and another layer. And so let's get a little bit clearer in going down this, because there are several facts that I want to go down in this. Because the first thing, as we talk about limitations, we need to talk about the limitations that were created, that were cast upon us by others. Because this is going to be the baseline of where our limitations come from. Because we have to look at our experiences. We need to look at our family. We look at our timeline, right? It's our timeline, our experiences, down from infancy to where we are today. And so what we're doing, and I've mentioned it before, is that we are collecting information. We are collecting how to be human by watching those around us. And it's truly a simple fact. That is what we are doing. We are learning how to act, how not to act, how people have succeeded or not, and how it backfired on them, and we don't want to do that. So we're collecting all this data constantly, right? Because truly we are limited by our own experience. We don't know another way or other actions because we haven't seen it or heard it or done it. so on and so forth. And so as we are watching the world around us, we are collecting these pieces, and then some of these that we're collecting are not always, again, positive, right? So we're creating these limits. Some of them we've created for safety, we've created for just to be able to survive in our world, in whatever world and shape that it comes in for you, and how you were brought up. Because depending on your type of background will depend on the type of limits that were created. And it's incredibly powerful, because immediately what's coming to mind is we have to think about those who were brought up in a very, maybe it was abusive or impoverished circumstances, where you were brought up in an area where you were forced to steal or join certain, like whether it was gangs or groups, just for survival. But that's survival. And so you did these things, and then from there you've collected these opinions and thoughts, these beliefs, where maybe you have been told you weren't to amount to anything. Like, that is not something. It's like I can hear it in my head as if someone's talking and I'm hearing it over, like seeing something you want from across and someone saying, but that's not for us. That's not part of our life. We won't get that because of this, this, and this, right? We all have these excuses. This, and this. This is where our line is, and we're supposed to stay on this side of the line. That is not for us. So this is something that we can't achieve. That's impossible because of the cards we were dealt for life. But this is collected because now we've taken that, and then someone's belief, we've kind of collected it for ourselves. And it's like, yeah, we're stuck in this. Like, life is hard, so we can't get out of it. And therefore, I won't even try to get there. I need to do what I need to do to survive right now. And most people do. They're stuck in there. And that's okay too. Because remember, where you are in the moment is where you're meant to be until you have this awareness, which is the point of this conversation. And it comes from, also, you have to look at the beliefs of, we're talking about family, right? So you have your family and we have those beliefs. And some families, they like to project their beliefs, and it goes down generation by generation, because we all on this unit, this is a respect thing, and this is what we all believe. Like, there's no choice in the matter. Or we have, again, those values. So we have certain values on certain aspects. And so maybe we're brought up in a family where money is valued over time with family, or that was just an example that just came to mind. But we have all of these different pieces, or again, who we hang out with, and throughout our life, we are collecting. So then we have our young childhood, which is really family based and what we're collecting in there. And then we're getting into our friends, as we are growing into more of those formative years in our youth. It's always about our friend based. And even still now, what we believe in these limits that we are creating is usually a collection of where we are now and who we hang out with. Right? So who are we surrounded by? What are these beliefs? What is that? And so we are collecting it. And the truth of the matter, the one thing about limitations, and we say that we collect them and we hear them from others, or people have told us that, like if you're a woman, women aren't supposed to do this thing, men aren't supposed to be, they're not supposed to be stay-at-home dads, or you're not supposed to show weakness, or women aren't supposed to have power. I don't know. I'm just going all over the board here because these are all examples of that. These are limits. But all limits are self-imposed. Limits are invisible shackles that we place on ourselves because we have listened, and then we've collected this data, and then we chose to collect it for ourselves. Well, they said, so this must be true. Or multiple people, this is this collective, all these people in my life believe this, so this must be true. And so we start creating those walls and those limits and all these impossibilities in our life. And there we are. We are our own worst enemies. We're the ones creating these walls and these blocks and these shackles that are keeping us there. That is one of the most powerful pieces that I had to understand that has changed everything. It changed everything. I created the limits for myself. I am the one who've kept myself shackled, and there's so many layers in it, and we're going to keep going because there's more to it, and understanding that for ourselves. And how do we remove it? How do we start, once we acknowledge it, how do we change that? How do we get out of that? How do we get out of our own prison? Essentially, that's what it feels like. How do we get out of our own prison? Well, that first piece there is, it's having this awareness that others may share their beliefs and their opinions, but we, ourselves, individually, are the only ones who can choose and decide what we collect as ours. We get to decide this, nobody else. Because our truths, all of us individually have very different truths than everybody else. We are not meant to all believe the same thing. Thing is that you have this urge, and we've talked about this again in previous episodes, that when you have these urges of wanting to create something for yourself, when you have these desires and these dreams, right? And when we see something on the street, and like that first example before, we might be living this hardship and we see something amazing, someone getting out of this beautiful luxury car, and we're like, oh, one day, like, I'm going to do that. That's going to be me. And then someone shutting you down, like, no, that's not for us. That's not our life. Like, don't even go there. The thing is, if you're desiring it and if you're dreaming it, it absolutely is a possibility for you. It's yours. That's your dream and your mold. The thing is that depending on where you're coming from, what these limits are, it's also facing these hard truths, and it may be very difficult to get there because, again, sometimes it is working from one end of the spectrum and you've got to work yourself to the other end. And a lot of that has to do with our own self-healing. Removing these limits is learning to love ourselves and to say that I am worth it. But I'm worthy of that. No one can tell me that I don't deserve that or I'm not worthy of it, because only I can say that. I am worthy of getting that. It's not going to be today. I'm going to have to work my butt off to get that. And that means I have to make a whole series of choices and facing a lot of fears and doing things differently than probably anyone around me. Because that's why those limits are there, because they have never tried it before. And that is scary. They haven't seen anyone in their life get there. When you break through to get to the other side, that absolutely can be yours. But you have to believe it. You have to believe that you are worthy of it. You have the power to do or to be anyone, anything you choose. Anything. You have that power. We all have that power. And that goes, honestly, to two sides of a coin. Right? Because it's positive and negative that goes with it, but you have the power to choose. And sometimes it's battling our own inner demons or that shadow self, or it is allowing ourselves this love and compassion for that growth and to evolve and to be able to do it, right? To find and channel that power that we can dig deep and almost just exude and it's like, again, I feel like this power coming up and then letting it explode outwards where all the shackles just fall off and pushing everybody's thoughts and limits away. It's like, no, enough is enough. I take my power back and I get to choose, which is right. And there's so much power in that. And guess what? The people around you, when you do that, they are not going to get it. Some may not. Let me see. Some may totally support you and they're going to be in awe and inspired by you. But there's going to be some that are going to backlash because they're used to being able to take your power. And when you take your power back, it's not always, sometimes it's a fight on that. But it's still standing true. And it's such a big piece in removing these limits, is standing in your own power. It's to remove those walls and those shackles and say, I can. I absolutely can. I can do and be anything I choose to do. But it is going to take work. And that's the other thing. That's the other part of the acceptance in there, that it's going to take work. You still have to create, and probably things that are very uncomfortable because you've never done before. But you can get there. It all comes down to a choice. It is the choice to tap into that power, or making the choice to retreat back into your comfort zone. And you know what? Both choices are terrifying. And that's the thing, is that it's not easy, and no matter what you choose. Because tapping into your power means you have to face so many fears, and it's to stand out, and it's to do something differently, and to be bold, and while everybody's watching. And then to retreat back into your comfort zone, it's almost like you give up on yourself. Because it might be safe there, but it's the safety zone of everything you've known before, but there's no growth there. And you stay exactly where you are, and therefore you are not getting or manifesting or working towards that beautiful end goal that brings you to that peace and that excitement and to that thriving part. And that's just as terrifying. And so if I could give any advice on here, and if both are terrifying, and you have to work towards something or the other when you are ready, because there is a fire that has to light, and you have to be ready to do the really hard thing. And let's be honest, the really hard thing is pushing outside of that comfort zone. That's when we're the most vulnerable. That's where we have to do the most work. But if it's going to be hard and terrifying, let's do something that at the end of it, we have something beautiful to look at, where we can be brave, and that there's this beautiful side on the other end of it. Because you're going to get pushback after pushback, and people giving their opinions or saying that you can't do it, or it's not worth it, or whatever it is. But you are the only one who can answer that for yourself. The only one. Standing up for yourself and saying, yes, I choose this, and I'm going to work to get it. And I'm going to remove these limits of things that people have told me. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about recognizing your limitations, because now when we are having this conversation, if you're still here listening, then you are still in a place where maybe you're connecting and you're getting it. I want to learn what these are. Maybe you might have one or two in your head, but guess what? We have so many, and it's on so many different levels where we've created these limits. So now it's coming into the awareness of making sure that it's just a place in your mind of creating a thought of saying, as I'm living and making choices for myself, I want to be aware of these limits. And so when you go about your life and your days, and it comes up with these choices, and you feel this passion towards something, and you stop yourself from doing whatever it is, then it's time to be like, wait a minute, why did I do that? Or catching yourself in conversations with other people, or even inner thoughts with yourself saying, I want to do that, but that's never going to happen. Oh, catch it right there. That's a self-limiting thought. That's a limit you've created for yourself. Now you have it. First question, once you know and see it, is ask yourself where it came from. Why did I just tell myself that I can't have that or can't do that? Whatever that can't or won't or shouldn't or whatever it is, where did that come from? Where did that belief come from? Most of the time, maybe you don't know. But usually it is a collection, like we've collected of our experiences. Sometimes you just know. You're like, because so-and-so told me I couldn't. And I believe this person. Or it's a societal thing, because society said that I can't do it. And by doing that, oh, that's scary, because I would be forefront. Or this was created because this is my belief system. This is what my faith taught me. Or it's really going in and just identifying where that came from. Find it. Now that you may have recognized where it came from, it's asking yourself, why did I collect it for myself? Why did I collect this now as my self-limiting belief? Why? Because the root of that is coming down into some really deep pieces. And that's why you have to have this awareness, and we're in this awakened end of realizing and dealing with our self-limitations, because now you're starting to recognize, and it's probably coming from a place of fear. Usually it's a fear of being seen, of being judged, or maybe it's you put it there for safety. Maybe this really is a safety thing. Or maybe this is created from a place of, again, feeling worthy or shame itself. Or you created it and put it there because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or it's the expectations of others that you're trying to fill, finding out why you created it and attached it there. Then it's asking yourself, can it be healed? Because sometimes we've collected some of these out of a form of trauma. Maybe it was an opinion of someone that came in an emotionally charged argument. Or maybe you created these again from a childhood that had a lot of, whether there was abuse or neglect or any of these other situations, can definitely bring on these limits. So can it be healed? Because if it can be healed, it's going into really the belief itself, but some of these beliefs come from a really big piece of trauma. And that's going to take a lot more time and work, because then you can recognize where it came from, and then you have a new piece to focus on before you can come back and finish the rest of this. And there's nothing wrong with that too. It's just knowing, it's like, oh, I need to go back and I need to work and heal some of these other pieces there. And now it's then coming back and rewriting that belief. Rewrite it into something that's more positive, that's more tangible, that will encourage you to do it. And I'm going to give you a personal example. One very self-limiting belief that I have, it is that I am not worthy of nice things, of making money, especially for myself. These are very big limits I have. This for me was created in childhood. I think it is multi-layered, but I do feel there's just one big incident or experience that I had as a child that I have been rewriting for a very long time. I have explained this before, I believe once in another episode, but I'm going to bring it again here. And when I was in grade school or middle school, one of the two, I was sat down with an adult that I trusted, and my siblings and I were given spreadsheets, and this was about finances, and I was told that I was the most expensive child, and it was in a tone that brought a lot of shame, as if I needed to be accountable as a child of how much money was spent on me. And so in that moment, I collected a belief that people spending money on me was bad and shameful. And so it is something I recognize now, because I am doing some childhood healing here, right? So I am talking to my inner child and I'm working through it, because I can see on the outside of how I would talk to anybody else about this. I'm like, that's somebody else's trauma and issue. As a child, people tell you, no, you don't have control of finances. You're a kid. So I have been rewriting and working that for a very long time. But here's the thing, is that for a long time, I felt I was a victim of the world. I felt that I couldn't do that. I wasn't worthy. There's no way I was going to get a job one day that was going to make a lot of money, right? Yes, I had a degree, I had a career, I was doing, beautiful things, but also I brought those limits to myself. So whenever I saw job posting or promotions that would make more money, I never would apply, because I didn't feel that I was worthy of that. I created that limitation that caused me to hold back, because in my mind, I collected this belief that I couldn't have it. That wasn't meant for me. That if I took it, that would be selfish, or that it would be something negative, that I should be shamed, or I should be ashamed for making past a certain amount of money. And so while my world does not evolve around that, but it is still something that goes into this deep pit of worth and value that I have to find for myself. And so I have been rewriting this very differently, of that the world is about balance, right? So for you, it's the same thing. What is it that it created, and where can you rewrite it? It's now creating it and knowing where it came from. It's like, okay, now we can work with this. And the thing is, it's not a switch. It's not just one rewrite and it's done, because I have been working on this for a very long time, and it is getting better, and it's getting better, and it's getting better. I'm starting to feel more valuable for myself and what I'm giving and what I'm doing, and that, whatever it is, this is the world. And it's not necessarily money in itself, but it is my own value in exchange for anything. I've always given more than I received, and that's an imbalance, because that's the one part about life, is that we're always trying to bring is balance. That's the key. It's the key for it all. It's got to be a balance. And this is a process to remember of where you do have to be kind to yourself, because these limits can bring up some of these old triggers or these old experiences. And even coming into the awareness and acknowledgement that you created them for yourself, sometimes we can really have some difficult thoughts and trauma, or difficult thoughts and words for ourselves. Be kind there. Just know that you weren't aware before, and you created whatever it is you created. You did it in the moment for your own survival. That's what you felt was right for you in that time. Or maybe you didn't, but it just collected. But right now you have the awareness. This is the only time you can change it. Remember that. Don't look back, because every experience you had is creating this beautiful person you are today. It's getting you to this place where you are taking all your pain and taking the dense stuff, the heavy things that have happened to you, and you're molding it and turning it into something beautiful by releasing what no longer needs to stay around, and by turning it and letting it go in a more positive way. You're spreading that, and that is something that's beautiful. So be kind there. And remember that the difference between you and those you admire for what they do or what they have or whatever it is they didn't stop. They allowed themselves to believe their value and their worth, and they kept going until they created it, or they did it, or they spoke it, or whatever it was. That can be you too. Because let me tell you, they were still scared and terrified. Every day they were doing it. They just had the awareness and they wouldn't stop. If you want to create it, it is going to be tough. But you got this, because you are worthy of it. And you have value, and that value is high and it's beautiful. So until next time, you beautiful soul, be kind to yourself.